AI has a potential to help us tackle the problems associated with climate change and the warming of our Earth. The closer we get to the precipice, the greater the urgency. This has helped fuel tremendous growth in AI projects throughout government and the public sector, where AI is being used to make more accurate climate change predictions or to intelligently power the infrastructure that could support lower emissions on a global scale. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Analytics Insight podcast, where we talk about the ever evolving tech space. And I'm your host, Priya Dayalani. Now, amidst all this enthusiasm, the one thing often being left out of the conversation is the carbon cost of these compute intensive solutions. At best, the adoption of AI might be slowed down because people haven't adequately considered the cost, financial or environmental, of the solution required. And at worst, it could accelerate the warming of our planet. Joining us today is Vineet Mittal, Senior Vice President, Ziroh Labs, to help us understand that why it is so important to develop a green AI technology, a technology that takes into account energy efficiency as an important evaluation metric. Hi Vineet, how are you doing?
I'm good, Priya.
Great. It's a pleasure to have you on our podcast today, Vineet. And of course, we have always discussed the role of AI and the kind of impact it is creating across industries, whether even it is addressing the problems associated with climate change. But I guess we haven't had enough discussions around the other side of AI, wherein AI is also contributing to the carbon footprint and the carbon cost of this compute intensive AI solutions. So we'll be discussing around that definitely. And before we dive deeper into the core discussion and the theme today, let's start our podcast by telling our listeners more about Zero Labs. So, if you could help us understand about the company, its specialization, it would be great.
Sure. So, Zero Labs was started around 2018, and the initial focus of the Zero Labs was around a technology called fully homomorphic encryption. The idea behind this technology was that world would be a safer place if we can compute on encrypted data. And a lot of it was about security, but it was a deeply mathematical work. So, somewhere along the way, a lot of our founders and team members, and to mention Mr. Whitfield Diffie, who is a Turing Award winner and who is our chief technologist, he and Rishikesh kind of stumbled onto this paper about AI. As you know, that AI internally is all about mathematics. So they started to worry whether the kind of AI that we are trying to bring it into this world will benefit from mathematical optimizations. And they started this work around 2020. So since then, it has taken some time, but here we are in 2025, and we have managed to build AI or run AI on the CPUs, which is a tremendous accomplishment for the team because it's not an easy problem to solve. Now, if you recall, the AI as we know today is based on an architecture called transformers. And these transformers require immense amount of matrix calculation. And only after billions of calculation, one token comes out. So the initial architectures that we have in the world today started to take advantage of the GPU. But GPU, as we know, has some challenges. Back in 2014, I bought some GPU cards, and to my surprise, my electricity bill doubled in a month. And it's only now that people are making sense of or rationalizing this whole problem with GPUs that if the world's AI were to run on GPU, we will have to find lots of electricity for it. And you are observing probably that many data centers that have run out of power in the US are now trying to come to India for launching such data centers. But India is already a energy starved country. And for us to actually make available any power for AI means we will have to take it away from the other uses of energy in our country. So it is a paradox that is taking shape. And that is why the rationale that Zero Labs today is based upon is to be able to run AI on CPU. And CPU processors consume 70% less energy than the GPU ones and are very much aligned with the need of sustainability in the world. So currently working on this problem at Zero Labs, we have two sets of people. Some are PhD in mathematics, they come from IITs, IICs, and another set of people are system developers who develop the programs very close to the CPU processors. Both the talents are hard to find and very rare in an Indian organization. We have benefited from the deep research that has gone into in terms of reducing the amount of calculations that a AI LLM model has to do. And 70% of the gains that we have achieved have come from mathematical work. Remaining 30 to 50% is because of our system developers who are programming very close to the processor, very close to the RAM. And in collaboration with Intel, we have been testing rigorously our software with their help. And so far, the results are looking very good.
Absolutely, that's incredible, Vineet. Thank you for breaking down so clearly. And it's always inspiring to hear the story behind the work, especially when it's making such a meaningful impact. With that context in mind, let's shift gears and talk a bit about your role within the organization and the value you're driving. Vineet, you bring over 20 years of leadership experience in enterprise software, cloud platforms, and AI infrastructure, known for your strategic vision, technical expertise, and hands on leadership style. You have successfully built and scaled high performing teams delivering transformative AI and cloud solutions. So, can you tell us more about yourself? How has your journey been till date? I am assuming the 2 decades have been pretty incredible. And what exactly is your role today at Zero Labs?
Yeah, so I started my journey in 1991, and I used to work in an organization called Bharat Electronics in Bangalore, and we were into radar signal processing. So, in some sense, I have seen the technology revolution as it started from 91 onwards. And there were various attempts to bring internet, and we finally succeeded around 2000 in seeing the growth of the internet. At that particular time, I was with Sun Microsystems, and we were building this thing called Java Virtual Machine that allowed people to run their programs regardless of the hardware. And it brought in a massive revolution around the world in terms of how people would design their programs. For the first time, they could actually develop something and run it on any processor. So it was a big game changer, and I think the entire world benefited from the Java virtual machine. And as we progressed further around 2010, the issues that we started to face were around security and cloud computing. So security became a very challenging problem, and even now, if you see, the security design is far from perfect. In fact, it has made life more complex. Today, when you want to log in into your banking websites, you need a mobile phone, you need OTPs, and almost everyone still, lives in the fear that something might still go wrong with their bank accounts. So we haven't been able to successfully assure people of end-to-end security. Now, this is what has happened to the commercial side. But on the open source side, if you see WhatsApp, for example, has been a tremendous boon for our entire country. It is very secure, and as you might have noticed, it runs without a user ID password. So, but somehow those very secure protocols and architectures are yet to be adopted into the mainstream businesses. And then the cloud happened. So cloud meant that you are going to now host your machines in these big data centers. That has also actually fueled the demand for energy all over the world. And now we have very, very large mega data centers. So, two problems that were there was that, what kind of operating system and how these big applications are going to scale. So tremendous innovations have emerged in computing as well as in computer storage as well as networking. And it is the net impact of all of those that we are able to see now cloud services scaling tremendously. But at the same time, they have introduced new problems, mostly because of the energy. And also, I think efficiency has somewhat reduced because developers are no longer sort of seeing the hardware, right? They are deploying it on the cloud and they're not very conscious of the energy challenges that exist. So, in some sense, the IT infrastructure, which had started to become optimal around 2010, but eventually became expensive, and advantage was that you could scale, but it came at a tremendous cost. So I did a startup back in 2016, and that was bought by Microsoft, and I spent about 6 years at Microsoft trying to solve security and distributed computing problems for the Azure cloud. And the challenges are still numerous, they are still ongoing. But now that the AI is emerging, we have a bigger challenge. And the challenge is, how do we rewire all these existing applications that are currently running on CPU to take advantage of the AI infrastructure? And it's not a trivial problem. Everywhere in whatever organizations you will visit today, you will hear this one point that I want to AI enable my applications. But these older generation of applications were not really designed with AI in mind. And AI itself, although it can help, we still need a lot of innovations to happen before we can finally address these problems and challenges. So, my role now at Zero Labs is to bring this experience so that a small company like Zero Labs advances in a firm fashion. When a company is small in the beginning, it needs people who can do work in all directions, including business, marketing, testing, mentoring of developers. And I play all of those roles depending on what the company wants me to look at this month. And the successful startups, you need people with sort of multidimensional skills. And it's a journey of sorts. Now, I've taken it a few times, and there's a lot of experience that I share with my team here and with my customers. And it is helping because of that experience. I'm able to describe to people what the journey could be and what step of the way, what would be the most important thing to do. So that's what I'm doing here at Zero Labs. I hope I answered your question.
Definitely, Vineet. And it's always inspiring to hear the depth and passion behind every leader's role. And it's clear that, every time it goes beyond the day-to-day responsibilities, and it reflects a strong commitment to innovation, leadership, and creating meaningful outcomes for the entire society along with its customer. Now that we have got a basic understanding of the company and as well as your role, let's move into the bigger picture. Now, a lot of companies are still under pressure to adopt AI, but unsure how to do it without overspending or stalling their existing operations. And finding ways to implement AI that delivers measurable returns without being a costly experiment is pretty challenging for a lot of leaders, especially for enterprise leaders. The risk of overinvestment in underutilized tools is real, and so is the need for clarity in execution. A McKinsey survey found that 78% of respondents reported that their organizations now utilize AI in at least one business function. So, adoption is accelerating. However, not all businesses are doing so in a financially sustainable manner. So we know that AI is definitely powerful, but so is it is resource intensive. How can we make AI more cost effective without compromising on performance or innovation?
Excellent question, actually. And it's a question that is on the top of mind of most enterprises today. As I said earlier, people are trying to AI enable their existing applications. And, whenever a new technology has come, For example, when internet came back in 2000, it was the same problem. How do we internet enable our applications? And many projects at that time failed for a few years because of two reasons. One is lack of information and lack of what you call AI middleware, or that time it was internet middleware. Uh, People could not really rewire their existing applications into the internet. Hence, this challenging journey of refactoring your applications to take advantage of new technology is going to be a very unique journey for the enterprise. Again, this time around, we are very early in this phase. And there are two kind of directions that people can take. One is that, okay, I'm going to stop all my legacy applications and I'm going to build applications from scratch upfront, right? Some organizations will take that kind of approach, and other organizations will slowly refactor their applications to couple them with AI infrastructure. Both are difficult paths to endure. In the first way, when you rewrite completely everything, it takes an enormous amount of manpower and expensive from a development standpoint. In the second journey, where you are going to retrofit AI into your existing applications, is equally challenging. So, right now, there is a lot of fear and uncertainty as to how this journey is going to happen. In the past, what I can see is that people who took their time to understand the new technologies and did not really rush into it immediately benefited the most. Now, what I mean by benefit is that the AI ecosystem is evolving. So, when a new technology comes out, the open source movement is what carries it forward. In the past, the inventions in the operating systems like Linux and databases and distributed computing software actually fueled the growth of internet enabled applications. In the AI world, such infrastructure is still being worked upon. And people who have invented AI obviously don't have much good understanding of the enterprise. And people who know about enterprise are still digesting how AI will help them. So it's going to be a sort of cautious approach, and in which businesses will have to become a bit reasonable about in how and what they want AI to do and take some measurable steps. The report that you mentioned, a lot of projects could not deliver, not sometimes because of technology alone, but the business expectations went through the roof. In the end, these are all programs. So unless a human being does something about it properly, you cannot take advantage of any technology. So a lot of fear is out there. A lot of companies are just randomly buying and investing into AI infrastructure without really having the applications to utilize that infrastructure properly. I talk to a lot of customers and system integrators. They're all grappling with this problem. So definitely it is early days. What I suggest people as a path forward is to develop a roadmap, develop very small milestones that business will be happy with, and choose your AI infrastructure carefully. Because if you lock yourself into a GPU based infrastructure, then you are already committing to a massive consumption of energy. And I see that problem in many startups. Many startups have started, they have borrowed a lot of funds from VCs and now are struggling to be profitable because of GPU cost that they are incurring. So it's going to be a sort of journey of sorts. And I believe as the entire industry ramps up and more meaningful AI middleware starts to emerge and the AI infrastructure becomes more efficient, I think then we will see the adoption happen more properly.
Definitely, and that's a really valuable perspective, Vineet, because it's especially in a world where organization often assume that achieving AI excellence automatically means scaling costs. I love how you highlighted that innovation doesn't always have to be expensive. It can also be strategic, optimized, and intentional. Of course, and that brings us to a very fascinating point moving forward. So when we are talking about, I think AI, it has been clear for some time that AI's carbon footprint could eventually come to dirty the heralded fourth industrial revolution. AI growth currently comes at cost because the algorithms behind AI solutions are computationally expensive to train and deploy, which results in significant barriers to entry for small businesses and individuals and the creation of a larger AI carbon footprint. A recent study estimated that the carbon footprint created by training one of these models is equivalent to 3 lakh kgs of carbon dioxide, which is the same as making 125 round trip flights between New York and Beijing. So, the environmental cost of AI models is becoming a growing concern. How do you think we need that organizations can make this AI deployment and development greener and more energy efficient?
Again, very good question indeed. Let's start from the basics. These computers that we talk about, they live in something called data centers. And data centers are massive buildings that will be hosting these computers. There is a great need, and that solution is not going to come from the software side of things, but we will need better civil, mechanical, and material engineers who will design data centers that are very energy efficient. And so that is one part of the problem. Again, it's a massive opportunity for people in India who are already very energy conscious in India, and how we can design these data centers so that the consumption at least slows down, right, or is more efficient. The second part is the solution that, for example, Ziroh Labs is working on. We are making AI available on CPU. Now, CPU are already running in data centers. There is no real additional need to buy more servers. There are enough servers that people have. And as you know, 100% of all applications in the world today, either newer or legacy applications, everything almost runs on CPU. So the innovation that we have done is to make AI available on CPU. The third part is the cost of the training that you mentioned. The training the AI model was thought to be $1 billion effort every time you train it, and hence, people invested into massive GPU-based data centers and consuming a lot of energy. Now, in last 3 years, what we have seen is the growth of open source AI models, and these models have come from organizations like Meta, which stands for Facebook. They have come from Alibaba in China. They've also come from a company called DeepSeek and another company in France called Mistral. So now, what these innovations have shown us is that the training infrastructure that you need doesn't have to be $1 billion infrastructure. You can actually accomplish those tasks with as little as $10 million. So, what that has done is it has democratized the future of AI because, for example, Ziroh Labs takes those open source models that have come out from these companies, and we are able to run them as efficiently on the CPU as they would run on GPU. And once we equalize that gap that existed for some time, now enterprises can take advantage and start to believe that open source will be the way forward. So this rationalization, where earlier what we were seeing is that OpenAI and Claude and Grok, they will dominate the AI landscape. That gap is being bridged now by these open source models. And I travel to various universities in India, like IITs, and almost every IIT in our AI mission is actually investing in creating large language models for the consumption of India. For example, language translation. For example, AI Ayurveda, training a LLM with Ayurvedic medical knowledge. And the bigger challenge for India is that a lot of these models, they have come from training data that belongs to the West. And hence, culturally, it doesn't feel to the end user that on the other side, the answer is coming from an Indian context perspective. right? So a lot of these trainings that will be accomplished now in IIT Chennai, in IIT Gandhinagar, and Mumbai is going to create AI safe for us in India, culturally more adaptable for Indian context. And for the first time, they will be able to do such training either at low cost GPUs or with help of Ziroh Labs. They might be able to do these trainings on the CPU as well. So that's an effort and it's an evolving thing. But our goal is to democratize AI with a view that it becomes accessible with the lowest energy cost and with modifications in AI so that it truly represents the culture of a country in a proper way.
Very well said, Vineet. And I think we often get excited about what AI can do, but conversations like this remind us that how we build and scale AI matters just as much as the outcomes it delivers. And I think you're absolutely right. Democratization and making AI inclusive and accessible, it's becoming a core pillar of responsible innovation. So, whether it's optimizing model size or shifting workloads to energy efficient data centers, I think the idea is clear that the AI's growth shouldn't come at the cost of the planet. Moving ahead, so of course, we have now understood the environmental impact of these digital technologies. And I think the energy transition offers a potentially profitable business for companies that monopolize AI and digital infrastructure. Above all, I think companies like Amazon, Microsoft, and Google, since they control the whole AI value chain from the required data sets and research networks to the startups producing AI applications, they kind of, play a very important role. So the space for these giants to offer digital green solutions grows as governments and businesses invest in R&D for addressing the ecological crisis and integrate ecological risks and needed action for their economic growth. How do you think that collaboration between governments, startups, and big tech companies can accelerate the development of low cost and green AI infrastructure?
Yeah, very, very interesting question. And some of it is in the realm of the policy, but let me touch upon some of the things. So when, take example of housing in India. Housing today is different from what it was 15 years ago. And things started to become more efficient. So, surprisingly, in AI infrastructure, much of the cost and sustainability that we are discussing, it's really about the energy being produced in a sustainable way. So, for that, I think, like Europe has done and some other countries have done, they do provide carbon credits for companies, an incentive of sorts to be bringing responsible computing with responsible clean energy. On that particular issue, I think in India we are still a bit ambivalent about it. So somewhere, that would have to be considered by the government policy designers. Now, secondly, anytime, let's say, a developer wants to develop and use an AI like that, like how we are doing at Zero Labs. Currently, there is no incentive for that developer to actually use an AI that can actually reduce the cost. So somewhere, I think I'm hopeful that our very responsible corporates and our very responsible government will take proper steps and encourage people to develop these things in a more responsible way. For example, there are various data centers in India that have made really good progress in terms of hosting these computers in an energy efficient way. Those kind of data centers should be really looked at very carefully as a standardized pattern for hosting AI. Now, Zero Labs is doing a lot of work in that area in terms of equipping such energy efficient data centers with our product and giving them a sense that you can get the same results what you are getting with OpenAI and Claude if you were to rely on open source and Intel CPUs. And CPUs, are available at much lower cost. The When I do the cost comparisons between GPU and CPU based infrastructure, the difference at entry level itself is like 70%. So why would you buy something that is expensive, energy wise bad? And part of the reason is that we don't yet have a policy that governs some of these things. So I would encourage our industry leaders and government and data centers to come forward and actually embrace truly sustainable AI and sustainable computing in general, so that we don't create, in the name of AI, a new mess for ourselves. And I think your question is very relevant, but it will take a whole lot of people to come and discuss and produce some policies and laws around these things. And I'm hopeful that very soon, I think such initiatives will come around.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's really important to have shared responsibility and not just innovation in isolation, because at the end of the day, AI can't just be powerful. It needs to be equitable, affordable, and environmentally responsible. So I think the pursuit of green AIs goes beyond overcoming technical challenges. It signifies a fundamental shift, placing environmental concern at the core of AI development. And it steers towards a future where AI development flourishes in harmony with the environment, minimizes negative impact, and protects its benefits for upcoming generations. Well, thank you so much, Vineet, for taking out the time and effort to be on a podcast today and helping us understand that the digital revolution is coming at a cost for the environment, with an increase in CO2 emissions caused by this sector, including AI. And the best way to unlock the potential for AI to be a key part of the solution to the climate crisis, rather than making it an unwitting cause, is when all the stakeholders can come together, embrace the power of AI, but ensuring that we are building a resilient and sustainable future for generations to come. Thank you so much, Vineet, for your insights. It was lovely chatting with you.
Yes, same here. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Vineet. So, this is for our listeners. I hope you enjoyed today's episode around the environmental impact of AI and how we can develop some cost-effective yet innovative AI solutions that can help us maintain the environmental balance and ensure that we are having a shared responsibility towards it. Stay tuned for our upcoming podcast. Meanwhile, you can view all our previous podcasts on Spotify and other leading platforms. Thank you so much.